Can you all hear me? Can you hear me? Maybe? Anyone? Can someone say something? Maybe. Technical issues. Yes, it's working. Fantastic. Brilliant. Hi, everyone. Good afternoon and welcome to today's Earth Life lesson. Thank you very much, Lizzie, for putting these on once again. Well, my name is Tom Land. I am a zoologist. I am an evolutionary biologist at the University of Southampton. And I make documentaries in my spare time. Today, I kind of wanted to talk to you about something that's quite close to my heart. Well, specifically Charles Darwin and two of his books. We'll get onto that in just a second, but a bit about me to start off with. I am currently researching at the University of Southampton a Masters of Evolution, specifically that of the brains of primates and how through time they have changed according to their niche. Basically, how have senses changed in monkeys and how have they got so intelligent. I should mention, sorry if I keep looking to the right, by the way, I have the chat is all going up that way, so if I need to answer any questions, which I will try to, they're all that way. So yeah, being an evolutionary biologist, I have a love for two very specific books by a particular gentleman, Charles Darwin. They are On the Origin of Species, published in 1859, and The Voyage of the Beagle, published in 1839. And as of August last year, before all the global situation happened, I had the very fortunate chance of going to the home of, well, the spiritual home of evolution, I should say, with my university, the Galapagos Archipelago. Now, most people have heard of the Galapagos and most people have heard of Charles Darwin, but not many people have actually known what Charles Darwin did when he was out there and why he was doing it. So today I kind of wanted to have a chat to you, clear things up just a little bit. What Darwin got up to on the voyage from December 1831 to October of 1836. What animals did he see? What did he write about? Specifically that of the Galapagos. And out of a 450-page book, this one, he wrote exactly 19 pages on it, and he only spent 2 weeks out of a 5-year voyage, which makes my job today slightly harder. Now, today's kind of talk, I'm going to spend the first half of it talking about Charles Darwin and that voyage, because I want to, and marine iguanas. The second half, hopefully a slightly different format, it's going to go a little bit optional. If you scroll up in the chat, I have put 4 options for the second half of this talk under optional talk choices. And they are Darwin's finches, waved albatross, giant tortoises, and Galapagos mockingbirds. If you just put in the chat which one that you want to hear about, I will talk about it for the second half. Oh yeah, and the waved albatross talk comes with a very small shipwreck story as well. Well, almost shipwreck story of what happened when we were out there. And I'm going to try and fit all of that into 20 minutes. Right, so the first part, Charles Darwin. Who was he? Well, in 1831, just before he set off on his voyage, he was a 22-year-old graduate, fresh from the University of Cambridge, studying theology. He left Cambridge with the complete intent and plan to become a vicar somewhere in the Surrey countryside, collecting beetles for the rest of his life. However, in London at the time, a list was being compiled of people that felt that should be chosen. Captain Robert Fitzroy was making this list, the captain of the H.M.S. Beagle, ready for its second circumnavigation of the globe. People that would be suitable for him to talk to on the voyage. People of intelligence, people of high standing in society, because he couldn't talk to the crew. And his name was number 5. He wasn't first choice at all, and number 1, 2, 3, and 4 all said no. So he was chosen to go on this, effectively, what he referred to as a gap year. That's what he was seeing it as, a small 2 to 3 year voyage across the globe to get some worldly experience before becoming a vicar. Yeah, that didn't happen. So, and a note actually before we get into it, he was a very religious man. He was a religious man going into the voyage, and he was a religious man coming out of the voyage. And the voyage gave him some ideas, but it certainly wasn't, he landed on the Galapagos, saw animals changing, and it was this message of evolution that got given to him. That wasn't quite the case. But we'll get onto his ideas in a moment. So what did he do on this? Well, the HMS Beagle, its main mission was for the British Empire, map the coasts of South America and the Galapagos Islands in order to find, well, perfect places to expand the British Empire to. That's what they did. Charles Darwin was there as an interested biologist. He didn't really take it that seriously, but he wanted to focus on it. And on the voyage, he managed to redefine the word species, figured out that volcanoes perhaps had something to do with the Earth's crust and the fact that the Earth's crust might actually move. He promoted, as far as I can tell, one of the first examples of conservation, and then proceeded to shoot quite a lot of wildlife and put it on his boat. So, slightly hypocritical. He determined bird migrations from America to Bermuda and South America to the Galapagos Islands, and he saw how remarkably similar animals were from South America and the Galapagos Islands himself. That planted the seed. He noticed how similar they were, and that kind of, in his notes, this is the only indication that he ever makes to his later book, Origin of Species. It's as close as he gets to, in his notes, about how species might not be immutable. That means that a species is put there on an island by a deity, and it doesn't change for anything at all. But this was the first kind of indication that that might not be quite true. And the first indication towards his thinking on the process of change of a species by an external pressure, evolution through natural selection. And then he doesn't publish anything for about 20 years, but that is a rant for a different time. The first animal that I really want to focus on that he got involved with is one of my all-time favorites. It is the marine iguana. Now, the Galapagos, for anyone who doesn't know, is a group of volcanic islands 900 kilometers off the coast of Ecuador, off South America. At this point, it had already been known for about 150 years. Pirates had used it to bury hidden treasure, not even joking. Sailors had used it to fill up water rations and fresh food. And because of that, it was pretty much pillaged of its wildlife quite quickly during that time. He was definitely not the first person to come and explore it. The marine iguana is unique as it is one of the only marine lizards in the world. And what happened 13 million years ago, one normal green iguana got washed over from South America, landed on the beaches, and over huge amounts of time, instead of, well, there's no grass on the Galapagos, hardly any grass whatsoever, they stayed on the coast, got a more marine style lifestyle, and started eating algae. As Charles Darwin found out when he dissected one of them and saw lots of green kind of mush inside them, he found out that, well, there's no grass hanging around at all. There's certainly no algae at shallow depths of within 2 or 3 meters. And after dredging one of the bays in the Galapagos Island itself, noticed lots of thick green algae. The iguanas could swim, which was completely new and completely baffling for him. They can dive for up to 20 meters. They can dive between 15 and 30 minutes. At a push, they can go over an hour, as Charles Darwin found out. One of the crew members of the HMS Beagle decided to go and get some lunch one day. He picked up one of the iguanas, tied a stone to it, and threw it overboard. Not sure what he was trying to achieve, and I wouldn't recommend you doing this today to anything, let alone a marine lizard. After an hour, and Charles Darwin was sitting there with his stopwatch, after an hour he drew up the iguana again, expecting it to be very much dead, and he saw that it was still alive. In fact, it wriggled out of the sailor's arms and ran down the deck. Now, I don't know the exact conclusion to that story, what happened to the iguana. I hope it got out, but honestly, can't promise anything. But he noticed that this iguana had stayed alive underwater for an hour and a half. They can hold their breath for a very long time if pushed. Inside their stomach, where they digest all the algae, they've got really specialized bacteria, enabling them to digest, well, this algae that no other animal could, to get out as much nutrients as possible. A 1 kilo iguana can in fact eat and survive on 8.6 grams. 8.6 grams of algae a day just to keep it alive. That is a very, very small amount. That doesn't seem like a lot, but when you put into perspective a 2,000 strong iguana colony like that off the coast of Hispaniola, the island of Hispaniola, they can eat up to 30 tons of algae a day. That is a lot of algae. and he is right in a few aspects as I'll go on. So what did he think about it? Well, some of his quotes from Voyage of the Beagle: "They are a hideous creature of immense stupidity. They are dirty and sluggish, and they are," my favourite quote possibly of all time, "imps of darkness." Now, having watched them for some considerable time when I was there, we had to study them for a period of time and measure their behaviour, and I got my camera out and tried to film them. Well, yes, they are very lazy, and yes, they are sluggish. That I can account for. Stupid? Not so much. When I was trying to film one, it was quite small, and being lazy, they don't do much. Suddenly, it got up and started chasing a group of flies, beg your pardon, across the lava. And being the most exciting thing that had happened in this colony all day, I decided to try and get some footage of it. And it sat on top of a rock, looking very, perfect, picturesque with the sea in the background. It looked at me with my camera, struggling to put the lens on and zoom in and focus it properly, and it ran over the lip of the lava. So I was like, okay, I can get it when it comes around the corner again. It's fine. I'll just tune it up. Now, about 10 meters away on the path behind me was a Galapagos ranger. They make sure that you don't get within 2 meters of any animal. That is the golden rule on the Galapagos. And I was fine. There was nothing else near me whatsoever. And I was waiting there for about 5 to 10 minutes for this tiny little iguana to come out the edge of this rock. And then I hear behind me just a which was the Galapagos ranger pointing out that I was now in breach of this rule, because the tiny iguana that I was trying to film had somehow gone round me and figured out that my bag is the highest point on this lava field and decided to bask there. So I had to leave it there, couldn't film it because my camera was there, and just watch from a distance as this iguana basked on my bag. So yes, they are quite clever. They are very, very cheeky, and they are full of personality. They have a fantastic salt filtration system. They're eating salt all the time. Lizards, birds, they have a salt filtration system in their nose. And the marine iguana has exactly the same filtration system as any other animal, but in this case, it's just working a lot harder. And you can see that when it sneezes every 3 minutes. It's just 2 jets of salty mucus coming out their nose. Trust me, you do not want to be in 2 meters when they do that, as I experienced, of mucusy, snotty salt all over my legs. So there's that. That is the marine iguana. Now, I have got the 4 other talks prepared. So what do you want to listen to? I've got giant tortoise, giant tortoise, giant tortoise. Wow. Finches, 1 for the finches. Sorry, Ed. Shipwreck story. Yep, waved albatross. Ooh. I think I'm going for, I think the waved albatross might just win on this one. But is there any questions anyone wants to ask about the Galapagos at all? Perfect. Cool. Well, I'm going to talk about the waved albatross for a bit. It's a good choice, by the way. So the waved albatross, possibly one of the Galapagos Islands' most beautiful birds, possibly one of the most beautiful birds in the world, full stop. They are grey and white, and as the name suggests, under the flight feathers under each wing. Beautiful kind of grey waved pattern. Their wingspan is about 2.5 meters for the largest ones. That is taller than me. They are big. Their length is about 90 centimeters long, and they are just truly stunning to witness. Today, there are about 35,000 breeding pairs in the Galapagos, but considering that 99% of their population is in one colony, should anything happen to that colony at all, and then the world is going to be significantly less because of it. Those numbers are for some reason declining. So far, the research that's been kind of carried out suggests that it is maybe because of longline fishing. They're getting caught in longline with the baits, the fish getting caught, and they hunt the fish on the hooks, and it doesn't end well for them. They can live up to, well, that's very depressing. I'm going to put that to a side just for a sec. They can live up to 40 years old. They are monogamous, which means they mate for life. So when they fledge, about 6 months to 9 months old, they will fly out in quite a small area between the Galapagos Islands, Ecuador, and Peru. That triangle is roughly where they spend most of their life. As soon as they've fledged and left the nest, they will spend about 5 or 6 years just wandering around that little area, feeding and foraging and getting to know the area. After 6 years, they come back to the Galapagos, to the colony where they were born, and they will mate, and they will choose a mate for the rest of their lives, which I think is actually quite pretty. So yeah, Darwin noticed these when he was sailing from Guayaquil, which is an Ecuadorian coastal city, to the Galapagos. He saw them flying over his ship, huge white birds, over his ship to the Galapagos Islands, where he thought they were going to go and feed. Needless to say, they weren't. They were going home from feeding. But he doesn't really say much about them. He just notices how big they are, how dramatic they are, and how they feed by sitting and diving into the sea for fish. He noticed as well the fact they don't flap. Well, waved albatross are related to the wandering albatross. They do something called dynamic soaring, which is they hold their wings out, very thin, long wings, don't flap at all, and manage to just keep going, keep soaring and soaring and soaring for about a day without a single flap. Now, dynamic soaring is quite interesting. Recent research has shown that above the sea surface itself is a 15-meter layer of very high-speed wind, and the Galapagos waved albatross will use that wind by angling itself into it and by kind of riding this wave of wind. It's efficient, it's easy, no energy cost, basically just to get it within the kind of the 10 to 100 kilometer range of its feeding. So something a little bit more about them. They are related to the fulmars, which are currently nesting off the coast of Cornwall. So I am told they're doing quite well there. I haven't travelled there. And like fulmars, they have quite an interesting defense mechanism. It's called albatross oil. Now, if Darwin had noticed this, I'm sure he would have commented on quite a lot, but he didn't. So I'm taking some liberties here. Albatross oil is made in the stomach of the albatross. It is stored underneath the crop in their throat, and it consists of a really thick, yellow, gooey, oily, fatty substance combined with half-digested fish and squid, from which it is originally derived. Now, as a defense mechanism, it's pretty gross. Waved albatrosses don't have much defense on them. They are quite slow in the air, they're soaring, they're graceful, and when a predatory bird, for example a skua, comes down and tries to nab one of them, all the albatross can do is turn to face them and vomit up this albatross oil all over their attacking bird. What this does is reduce any of the useful aspects of a feather. They're no longer warm, it strips them of their waterproof properties, which is really bad for a seagoing bird. It means they most likely will not survive the day. They can no longer float and they can no longer hunt and fly, for that matter. So it's a good kind of defense mechanism against that. However, they use it for another purpose as well. When they're on the wing for a few days at a time, it's energy rich, so they'll eat it. They'll eat their own weaponry, effectively, to keep on going. And when they get back to the nest, they will regurgitate that for their chicks. Now, this is almost 2 kilos of oily, yellow, fishy, squiddy gunk that they give to their chick. The chick is 3 kilos. They feed 2 kilos to it at once, almost doubling its weight. Researchers have said, after they've actually looked at the poor thing, that it's just a kind of bloated bag of sad, oily mess that they really just kind of, it takes them a week to digest it, poor things. But the energy makes them grow incredibly quickly, which is what they need to survive 6 years out on the wing. But I saw these on the way over from San Cristobal Island to Santa Cruz Island, which is about, I'd say, an hour and a half trip, normally. The trip when I took it was potentially, I'd say, 3 hours in the highest winds I've ever seen. Our guide had never seen waves higher. We were in a kind of 30, 40 foot sunseeker with an open back. Waves were coming into the back where I was sitting, trying not to be ill. And for a 3 hour trip where we potentially almost died, I mean, we were going up waves sideways. I was leaving my seat and my friend was flat against the wall with the sea behind him here. I think he was expecting the worst. And I saw 2 albatross. They followed us for a bit and they left. And that was the positive of that trip. But when we got to Academic Bay, the bay on Santa Cruz Island, with the Charles Darwin Research Station, there was a 3-masted schooner sitting in the bay. This thing was being just tossed and turned and thrown. Again, wondering how we had survived the 3 hour trip across the sea. But it was just being thrown around the bay, which just showed me the HMS Beagle was not a big boat. It was quite small. I would say smaller than the thing that I was seeing being thrown around the bay. And it wasn't metal, it was wood, which kind of gave me insight into what Darwin and Fitzroy and his crew had to withstand for 5 years, their home just being thrown. Yes, we are almost run out of time and I'm finishing off. But that just gave me an insight into basically what he was experiencing for 5 years. But just a really quick final note, what that means to me, and what the science and this whole topic means. 150 years before Darwin got there was just persecution of most wildlife. Ships and pirates got there, fresh food from the tortoises. One tortoise when Darwin got there was already extinct. The Floriana tortoise was gone. From the 15 tortoises species that were there, only 12 are alive today. It was a case of take what you need before someone else took it before you, just to live and survive on your ship. It was careless management. But Darwin mentions the fact and the fate of the Floriana tortoise. And it says how just a degree of thought to keep this environment alive might do wonders. And it does. Keeping an area free of human habitation is wild, as it were, does wonders for both a local aspect and for a global aspect. The Charles Darwin Research Station is amazing. They are ensuring tourists don't go anywhere near it, but still tourists are coming. 250,000 last year. And the more tourists there are, the more transport and travel there is, the more boats are coming in, the more urban areas are expanding into wild areas. We want, but again, they are cutting down this. We want pristine mangroves to stay pristine so baby sharks can thrive, the marine protected areas to do their job, the mossy cloud forest to stay mossy and misty, allowing incredible, elusive, brilliant red vermilion flycatchers to thrive in their environment in the jungles. Darwin saw the importance of having a place where humans don't have full dominion, and we're doing our best on the Galapagos today. In 1839, he showed people the natural history and geology of the islands. In 1859, with the publication on the origin of species, he showed people the idea that was seeded and formulated from that single journey. One of the most important ideas in modern biology that changed how we look at the world today. Well, thank you for watching. I hope you got an insight into the incredible world of the Galapagos and of what Darwin was up to. If you want to know more, I have a website, thomasland.co.uk. Link should be in the description. All my social media bits are on there, my Instagram and Twitter, should you want any more questions. Please get in contact. I would love to ask them. Sorry I've overrun for 2 minutes. And if you do have any questions, fire away at me. I have a small documentary coming out hopefully later this week on solitary bees. Another bigger documentary coming out on something I've spoken about today. Can't give away too much information in the next few months. Both of those are going up to the website. Hopefully a podcast coming out as well at some point on, you've guessed it, evolution. Stay safe, stay at home. Thanks again once again to Lizzie. And have a good day. Thank you very much. I'm going to figure out how to turn this off now. Perfect. Thank you very much, guys.